It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by ESPN Plus. The final chapter in the rivalry between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor will be written on July 10th at UFC 264, which is exclusively available to ESPN Plus subscribers for $69.99. Visit espnplus.com/Spotify.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everyone. You are listening to Locked On Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. My name is Sarah Avampato. This is Locked On Kings, and I am hoping that everything you hear after this is still relevant, because today is, of course, trade deadline day. We have no idea what's going to happen, no idea what Rob Blake is going to do. We, of course, know that there are some big names out there and some medium-sized names as well, and Rob Blake does have options, especially now that, you know, even though the team is trying to tell us that the playoffs are still within sight, we know the truth and that isn't going to happen. After the Kings games against the Sharks, where they did win one, which was exciting and fun, and I liked it, and I wish they could have played like that against the Sharks more often this season, and then maybe we would actually be heading to the playoffs instead of contemplating who is going to get sold off in the next few hours, potentially. But after those games, Todd McClellan made a few comments that sort of made it seem like he was putting some cold water on a lot of the trade rumors that have been going around with the Kings. Of course, I think we all know to never take anything any of these people say at face value, but, it's possible that we won't see maybe some of the moves who we had thought to be seeing, or everyone's going to go. Fire sale. Who knows? Tomorrow's show will, of course, talk about whatever happens as today unfolds throughout the trade deadline. If something big does happen, make sure you go find the Locked On Kings Twitter at Locked On LA Kings. I will be sure to be posting thoughts, opinions, maybe a quick video or something, depending on what it is that the Kings do. One more thing before we get into the meat of the show. I should never say the word meat here, and yet I did. Anyway, one more thing. If you are interested in live trade deadline coverage, we are doing just that on Locked On NHL. You can find our coverage starting at noon Eastern time. It's going to be streamed live video. You can find it on Facebook, Twitch, the Odyssey app, pretty much anywhere that Locked On exists. We are going to be doing a live show. So make sure you follow Locked On NHL Pods on Twitter. I will also tweet out the link on the Kings Twitter and on my own Twitter at RightSideSarah. The first 2 hours are going to be with Mary Clark and Andrew Berkshire, who are the hosts of the new Crosscheck NHL podcast, part of the Locked On family. And then I am joining Ross from Locked On Senators at 2 p.m. Eastern to kind of take us through the end of the day for the trade deadline. So make sure you join us there for any breaking news, big trades, and cool stuff like that. Now, on to today's actual show. I am really excited about my guests today. They are three of the crew over at the Hockey Royalty Podcast, which is the unofficial podcast for Rink Royalty, which is the fan-sided Kings site. And so I am really excited to have these guys on the show today to kind of talk trade rumors, what we see is going to be happening next for the Kings, and of course, the most important question, when do we get to see Quentin Byfield play for the Kings? So without further ado, here we go. This is the crew from Hockey Royalty right now on Locked On Kings. So we've got a whole bunch of guests today on the show. We've got the crew from the Hockey Royalty Pod who are going to be here talking about the Kings, talking about the trade deadline. They are, of course, the crew from it's the unofficial podcast, I believe, from Rink Royalty, and are going to be chatting with me today. So you're going to hear a whole bunch of other people who aren't me talking about the Kings, and I'm going to have them all introduce themselves right now.
My name is Scott Kimball. I'm a contributor over at rinkroyalty.com. I've been a Kings fan since the 80s, so about tells you how old I am. Obviously I love the Kings, but, they're giving me ulcers. They really are. They built me up with so much hope this year, and now we're just hanging on by a thread. But the fact of the matter is they are an improved team, and the future's looking really good. So what may happen will happen this year, but it's looking good down the road.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having us on, Sarah. I'm Russell Morgan. I'm also a contributor to Rink Royalty. Been a Kings fan for probably since the early 90s. Was born in 88, so kind of came up with the Gretzky era, and then mid 2000s were kind of rough. And then now we got the 2 Stanley Cup banners. It's fun to see. But as far as this year goes, it's been up and down. The Rink Royalty crew knows that I've kind of preached development this whole year, and I know playoffs were kind of in the back of my mind too, but with the way it's kind of gone up and down, a little frustrating here and there, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, so looking forward to it.
Yeah. Wait, Russell, I didn't even realize that you were older than me. So I'm the young one of the group. My name's Ryan Sykes. I guess I'm the site editor at Rink Royalty. So if something's wrong over there, you can blame me. But no, I've been a Kings fan since I was born in '89, born in Fullerton, California, Ducks territory. But no, my father got me interested in hockey at a young age, Wayne Gretzky era. I live in Chicago now, which I believe you do too, Sarah. I'm just kind of stuck. As far as the Kings this year, I've been mostly pleased. Just the Shark series have frustrated me.
Yeah, we'll get into those in a little bit, but I think we're just going to start out with you guys all kind of alluded to this, but at the beginning of the season, I think we all had our own expectations for the team and our own thoughts about where they were going to go this season. And is this about what you expected standings wise at the beginning of the season, or were you expecting them to be better, or were you expecting them to be like down with Buffalo?
I guess I'll go. I mean, I kind of expected them to be around this kind of, I guess, where are they, 6th place now, a couple points, or 7 points behind the Coyotes for the last spot. But there's a bunch of young kids on this roster. I mean, look at our defense. It's Mikey Anderson's first full season, Tobias Bjornfot first full season. Our bottom 6 is just a big question mark right now. But we kind of alluded to it in our last episode. There just needs to be some change made in the bottom 6 and maybe the second line going forward. I know Scott kind of mentioned that our second line needs some reworking starting next season, huh, Scott?
Absolutely. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And I have to tell you, I'm not on the blame Gabe Vilardi train. Obviously, there's things that he can improve in his game, of course, but I mean, he's really a rookie, let's face it. And I would just love to see what that kid could do with a legit sniper on either wing. I really would, because let's be honest, he never really has been a big goal scoring machine throughout his entire junior career or wherever, but the guy is known to be able to set plays up. And what do you need for a guy like that? Somebody who could put the biscuit in the basket, right? So that's what I would love to see them either off season or, you know what? Give Kaliyev a shot with them. Why not? Especially if we're going to wind this season down, bring Kaliyev back up, put him on Vilardi's line and see what happens.
Oh, that's another thing. I mean, I think we're expecting to see Vilardi a lot with Ferk this year, and he's played, 9 minutes, 51 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then broke again.
And I was back down in Ontario, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I don't know when he's going to get into a game, but I think they just officially reassigned him.
Oh, and Sarah, I got sidetracked on the whole Vilardi thing, but I did want to say that I was on the record at the beginning of the season thinking that the Kings could make the playoffs. I really, truly believed with the way the division setup this year, and with the top 4 teams in each division and set up by conference, I really thought that they had a puncher's chance. They still do, but I mean, it's a real long shot now, but glad I didn't put money on it.
Exactly. So we did kind of also get into this when we talked about the Sharks and how unpleasant all of that has been. Have the last couple of weeks of games where they've just basically been stymied by Martin Jones all of the time changed your opinion on what they should be doing at the deadline? Like, did you think, maybe they could sneak into the playoffs, so we should try to fix some need or something? And then you watched what happened against the Sharks and were like, never mind.
Well, I kind of field this question. I never thought that they would make like a big splash at the deadline, maybe just add a veteran player and just kind of ride out and see what they have in the rest of the roster. But yeah, I mean, Martin Jones could be a Vezina candidate after this 2-game set.
There is more trade deadline talk right after this, but right now, let's talk Built Bar. If you don't know already, Built Bars are the best tasting protein bar ever. They are low in calories, low in sugar, high protein, high fiber, and the best thing is that they taste basically like you're eating a candy bar. My breakfast this morning, a Built Bar, peanut butter, in fact. They come in 18 amazing flavors, including peanut butter, cherry barcia, salted caramel, coconut, banana bread, and many others. So whether you're someone who is super health conscious, or you're someone like me who is just, usually too lazy to get an actual real breakfast, Built Bar is there for you to help you start your day or end your day or get in the middle of your day with the best tasting option you could possibly find. So go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and you get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
Yeah, you're making sports bets, but are you making winning sports bets? To win consistently, you need an edge, research, analytics. It's a lot. Or you could let BetQL do the work for you. Every game, every potential bet, from winners and losers to all the sides and totals, line movement, player props, and more. All backed by BetQL's proven data and analytics. BetQL analyzes over 350,000 unique bets every year and rates each potential bet on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. A 5-star is definitely a smart bet. 1 star, smart money is staying away. BetQL even lets you sort all of today's games with the best options listed right there at the top of your screen. BetQL gives you access to the same information the pros use. The stuff the sportsbooks don't want you to see. It's time to bet smarter and beat the books with BetQL. Visit BetQL.com today and use promo code PODCAST for 20% off. That's 20% off with promo code PODCAST at BetQL.com.
You can get all the sports news you need in under 20 minutes with the Locked On Today podcast. Host Peter Bukowski updates you on the latest news in every major sport with the help of our local experts. Follow the Locked On Today podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. Next up, more hockey talk.
The Shark series kind of made Rob Blake's decision going into deadline a little bit easier. I think going into that before those 4 games with the Sharks, I think maybe you'd stand pat, kind of see how the team, what the team can do toward the end of the season. Maybe they kind of sneak in, but going into the Monday's deadline, I think now it's kind of Rob Blake starting to field some calls, and we've had Bruin scouts at the last couple Kings games. So there's been rumors circulating whether Iafallo or Justin Brown's going to be heading over to Boston. I know Toronto's interested in Adrian Kempe, which kind of surprised us a little bit, but the last couple games has kind of open up Rob Blake's eyes. I'm sure he's going to be fielding a lot more calls, and we'll see what happens going in Monday.
Yeah, going into those series, I didn't think that they were going to make any big splashes at the deadline. But as far as if they'd actually at least split that series, either one, maybe they stand pat. But now I think you really have to start moving some pieces and get what you can and just keep reloading for the future, because there's absolutely no point in trying to bring in a big name now. Forget it.
Yeah,
that's what the offseason is going to be for.
I was just going to say, Scott, that's what the offseason's for.
Exactly.
Russell, you mentioned 2 guys who I think are kind of divisive to Kings fans, and that's Alex Iafallo and Adrian Kempe. It seems like anytime you talk about either one of them, someone is online to complain about what they're bringing or what they're offering to the team, or why is that guy playing with that guy. And so, the two of them potentially being trade targets, I think would get the attention of some Kings fans, but Iafallo in particular, I feel like his name has really started to heat up in trade talks just over the past, or trade rumors at least, over the past handful of days. Do you think it's worth it to trade him and try to bring him back, keep him? What's sort of all of your takes on our unexpected first line winger?
Yeah, for Iafallo, I mean, for him to be playing on the first line, I think we all kind of figured that's probably not going to be where he would be on a contending team. He just kind of happened to be in a fortunate situation to be playing with Kopitar. Not to say Iafallo's a great player. So he's able to get in those dirty areas, able to get the puck out, get the puck to Kopitar, and then Kopi's able to find Brownie. But as far as the deadline goes, I think that's a player that will draw some interest. Teams that are contending for the Stanley Cup are going to be looking for a player like Iafallo who can play those tough minutes, who can play in like those middle 6 lines and maybe contribute offensively. But as far as Kempe goes, I think it's just the streakiness. I mean, that's what draws the Kings fans' ire. He had like 4 goals in that Ducks series, and then all of a sudden he just does nothing. Or he had 1 point in like the last 9 games or something like that. But I think that's kind of why, I mean, I've been kind of like on Kempe a little bit. It's just, you want to see more. He had a lot of talent coming out of Sweden, and he's never really brought that out. I never expected him to be a 20-plus goal scorer in the NHL, but I wanted him to produce a little bit offensively, and he's been given the chances.
Oh, there's no doubt he's been given the chance. As far as Iafallo goes, Alex Iafallo is your ideal third line, maybe even second line winger. everybody knows that he's not the prototypical first line winger. If the Kings are going to keep him, it's going to be with the idea that eventually Kopitar is going to be slotting down the lineup, right? Because eventually you're going to have Quentin Byfield emerging. Eventually you're going to have Alex Turcotte emerging. Eventually you're going to have Kupar. I mean, there's just, the list goes on and on. So if you want to keep him around to stay with Kopitar, say 2-3 years down the road, that's great, fine. But I think if they're going to start making trades, go ahead and do it. Do it, because you're going to need roster spots for starters. Okay. And I have a little unorthodox theory. Okay. As far as trade deadline goes, I would be looking to get draft picks in the 2022-2023 draft. For the reason being is the Kings are going to be expected to start contending by then. Right. So they're going to end up being buyers at a trade deadline, so long as everything goes right. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you got to do to keep your pipeline alive? You got to have draft picks yourself, right? If you start loading up draft picks a couple years down the road, you're going to be able to move draft picks, get the players you need back, and still be able to replenish your pipeline. So that's what I think should happen. Of course, that's not what's going to happen, but that's the way I see things.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but that makes a ton of sense. And hindsight's 2020. But if our good friend Dean Lombardi had kind of looked at things that way, maybe we would have had more than 4 picks in the draft or something during some of these years where they needed. Now we have this gap because we had several years of one guy panning out because you only had a couple of picks. That's
Wait, you mean trading a first-round pick for Andres Sekera is a bad idea? Wait,
I mean, it's. I don't know that I would have done it. Also, I think I was at the game that he got hurt, and I'm pretty sure that there were several. There's at least one other player that the Kings acquired who I was at the game. Oh, I think it was Chris Versteeg, who also. It's the thing they did. Who I was like, I need to stop going to games right after the trade deadline because I have cursed them.
I think he got a solid 10 games in, didn't he?
Something like that.
I mean, just to kind of wrap up what Scott and Russell said, I think if Iafallo gets traded, I don't think he comes back. Unless he's Patrick Marleau, he's not coming back to the Kings.
He'll have to take his surfboard collection
exactly.
somewhere else. So what's kind of your under the radar pick for a player who the Kings might look to trade? And I know that, the conventional wisdom is a GM should be listening to calls on everybody. But some names are a little wilder than others. But if you were calling the shots, who would you be looking to kind of move? Who might surprise people?
I would say Sean Walker. I think Sean Walker, because I mean, you know what? They're going to need some defensive spots too, right? And I think it was Dennis Bernstein that pointed this out. I mean, Sean Walker is a very attractive option, and I have to agree with him. I mean, that's a puck-moving defenseman who's got a very reasonable contract. And he's controllable for the next few years. So if there's going to be, I don't think that they would do it, but you never know. I mean, it's kind of one of those, if that's what it's going to take to close the deal. And that's an off-season move, right? I don't think that's something that's going to happen at the deadline, but you never know.
As far as the deadline, and maybe it's not even underrated, but Athanasio has to be the guy, probably because of his contract status at the end of the year. Obviously his production is there as well, minus 2 weeks to being on the COVID list, but he's a restricted free agent at the end of this year. He was part of a trade package last year that netted 2 second-round picks. I'd be listening to calls.
Yeah, I think Adrian Kempe, when I saw that report out of the Toronto Star that the Maple Leafs were looking at him, that definitely caught my eye because, I mean, he's still got a pretty relatively inexpensive contract. I think it's only $2 million for the next year or 2 more years or something like that. But for him to get moved, that could draw some pretty good return. I mean, we all know how Kempe is. I mean, I've been critical of Kempe also, but he's only 24. He's a left wing he's big and he can still play some pretty good. I mean, he looks pretty good on the power play also. So that could generate a pretty good return.
Yeah. And Toronto, at least, is a team that we know we've done quite a bit of business with them over the past few years. So it feels like if the Kings don't send someone to Toronto at the deadline, I might actually be surprised that they didn't make that move.
Yeah. Him and Rob Blake and Sheldon Keefe are like best friends right in the last couple of years, it seems. It's funny.
Yeah. Just here, take this dude.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Here you go.
Yeah.
How about the job that Jack Campbell's doing this year? Holy cow.
Oh, I love it. It's such a good story. He's such a good, you always wonder in hockey, is this guy actually a good guy or is he just, he's real good at interviews? But everyone says that he's just the nicest guy. And the fact that he even was like, I want to thank the Kings for, all my teammates and everyone there for helping me get to here. He's a guy who I don't want to root for anything about the Maple Leafs. I don't want to have to think nice things about them at all, except for also maybe Jake Muzzin. But I was like, all right, I love one Toronto Maple Leaf, and I would like for Jack Campbell to have.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of referenced it, Sarah, but his post-game interview after going 10-0, is very emotional when he saw the scoreboard of his teammates reacting to his 10th win.
Nice kid. We've got more news, thoughts, facts, and more coming up right after this.
Support for this podcast comes from Invent Together. According to studies, less than 13% of all inventors who hold a U.S. patent are women. Black and Hispanic college graduates patent at half the rate of their white counterparts. But we can fix that by increasing participation in innovation and patenting by underrepresented groups. It would quadruple the number of American inventors and increase annual GDP by almost $1 trillion. Invent Together is a coalition of organizations, companies, universities, and concerned citizens committed to ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to invent and patent. Because the more diverse the American patent system gets, the stronger and more successful our nation will become. What can you do to help diverse inventors patent and unleash economic opportunity? Find out at inventtogether.org. Learn more and take action today.
BetOnline.ag is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action. Football might be over, but we've got the NBA, we've got MLB, and of course the NHL all in full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV. You can get real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets, and it is free to sign up. Head to the website, betonline.ag, or use your mobile device to sign up today. Receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's betonline.ag, promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And you can be a waiver wire winner with daily fantasy hockey advice from Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Our expert Scott Cullen gives you the tips, insights, and analysis for season-long Dynasty and DFS League. Follow the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. We're going to close things out right now with more trade deadline talk right now on the show. One other trade thing that I isn't quite trade deadline, it already happened, but Brendan Lemieux. Yes or no? What did you guys think about that trade? I certainly have been kind of vocal on my show about that, but what were your feelings on it?
I liked it. I mean, the Kings needed a player like that on the team. I mean, I mentioned it when the trade happened. I looked it up, and he led the Kings in hits when he was traded. I think he had 65 at the time. So the Kings needed a spark plug on that fourth line, and kind of knew we were getting out of Austin Wagner, Matt Luff, and all those bottom six players, but to get a player like Brendan Lemieux who can stir things up, kind of rile up the team a little bit. I think that's good. You need a fourth line player who can be like that, and I think he'd be a successful fourth liner on a contending team.
Yeah, absolutely. The Kings really needed somebody like that, and you know what? They had 2 4th-round picks anyway, so why not start using up some of this draft capital? I mean, now and here I just got done saying, oh no, we should be trading for picks in 2022 and 23, right? But if you're going to help yourself out a little bit now for a 4th-round pick, absolutely go for it.
I feel like my knee-jerk reaction was like, why did we do this? But then, kind of, sitting back and thinking about it a little more, like, yeah, they're missing the Cal Clifford. They don't have that guy anymore. And I guess if I had to pick between Brendan Lemieux in the lineup and Curtis McDermott in the lineup, if you want that guy, I'll take Brendan Lemieux.
That's pretty tough.
Kept me up at night trying to figure out how to answer that question. But
that's interesting that you pointed out Kyle Clifford, because I pulled up their age 25, age 26 stats, and they're very similar. So yeah, I think it's definitely an element that they needed on the roster.
Yeah, and he's a player that is, again, on a very good contract that, I think that if they do ever need or want to move on from him for any reason, I think he's the kind of guy that every team wants, that kind of guy on their roster, so he could be moved if needed. But, we'll see. He's only gotten into one game, but the fact that he hasn't gotten in a fight yet, I think actually has beaten the expectations of a lot of people who I talked to who thought he'd already dropped the gloves.
Give him time.
Yeah, I was going to say he might in the Shark series for sure.
Yeah. If not, we're playing the Ducks soon. So,
Yeah.
I think that was what was attractive with him too, is that he had some camaraderie with Leo Sanderson a couple years ago. And then I know Ryan mentioned when the trade happened that he had some familiarity with Gabe Velarde in Windsor. So that was interesting. I was hoping maybe you could see those three maybe get together, but I think he actually looked pretty good with Kempe. So we'll see what happens.
So one thing that I think has come up a little bit, and we've already seen Chicago do it with Florida taking on a couple of kind of bad contracts to help them clear cap space. The Kings have a ton of cap space. I'm pretty sure they have the most in the league. Do you guys think there's any chance that they're going to take on bad contracts? Any teams who you think would be a good team to make a deal with to take someone off their books in exchange for some sweet prospects and draft picks?
I thought the Islanders and the Kings would be main. It just fits so well. I mean, the Islanders were looking for the winger. Obviously, they made that trade for Palmieri and Travis Zajac, but I know they have that Andrew Ladd contract still on their books. So if they wanted to if the Kings wanted to eat some of that contract and then maybe trade some players over, there's a lot of good prospects that the Islanders have. And I was looking at them. I know Robin Salo is a really good defenseman that they have. They have Kiefer Bellows, who's another good left wing. So that was one team I was looking at.
Well, I tell you, what makes me nervous about that is that the Kings have 49 out of 50 contract spots filled. So I don't have a problem getting a lot of prospects or picks for a bad contract, but you also have to free up some contract spots. That's the only problem I have with that. So if that's going to be the case, then you actually have to send another contract back the other way along with that. So, that's kind of iffy for me.
Just to add to that, I mean, I spoke with the guy who runs the Eyes on Isles site, Parker Wotherspoon, defenseman, 23 years old. He can't find permanent playing time at the NHL level because the Islanders have they're so stacked on defense. So, yeah, I mean, to kind of sum it up, yeah, I think they definitely can, because they got $10 million coming off this offseason in Kovalchuk and Phenups. But why not?
I think it just feels good also to be in this situation after the last few years we've been in. I mean, it's like we were in this kind of salary cap hell, I guess, what everyone call it. But now it's like, hey guys, we got some space over here. You want to throw some bad contracts, maybe a first round pick, and we'll throw you whoever. So it's just a fun. I mean, it's not a fun situation to look at standings wise, but when you look at our salary cap, this offseason is going to be fun because we have the opportunity to sign maybe a Dougie Hamilton or even trade for. I've been a big proponent about looking at a Kyle Connor or Winnipeg or Nikolai Ehlers, someone like that, to kind of solidify that first line left wing for the Kings going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a big need that it really isn't going to get done until draft day, and maybe we'll convene again in a couple of months to get our draft trade proposals out there. But yeah, I think a lot of fans who are casually aware of cap space kind of stuff, but don't necessarily follow it every day. I think a lot of people aren't aware that the Kings actually do have so much room, because I keep seeing a lot of we can't do that. That's going to be too much money. I'm like, we've got a lot of it. We've got a lot of space, and they've never really been shy about spending money or taking a contract that has to pay a guy. So I think a lot of people don't actually realize that we have just a lot of room to make moves.
Well, and the other thing is you have Brown and Carter's contracts coming off at the end of next season. So that's even more cap space, and they really don't have any huge contract needs after that. So obviously, if the kids start panning out, they're eventually going to want to get paid. That's an understood thing. But honestly, they're set up for the next 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I said, my only concern was I just don't want to see them max out that contract spots if they don't have to. Sometimes you have to, and you're going to lose one at the expansion draft. Mm-hmm. But it's just me being Mr. Pessimist.
That's you, Scott.
We're practical.
One quick note on Iafallo. I mean, he's obviously an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. He's probably going to get a $4 million to $4.5 million AAV contract for 3-4 years, probably, whatever you want to call it. I worry about his production when he's eventually dropped in the lineup, not with Kopitar. I just don't know I don't know what his production will look like, but can you live with that if he's on the second or third line?
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be that seems like a target for people getting mad then that he's getting paid $4 million. I mean, people get mad at Kempe for getting like 2.5 or whatever and scoring what he does. I can't imagine, the ire that's going to attract if he's getting paid $4 million and not producing. I mean, if he's just producing like he is now, people would still get mad about it.
Sure. And people will get mad about anything, but yeah.
Oh yeah. 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 Trade him. Don't trade him.
We're Kings. We're hockey fans.
Sign him.
Hey.
Don't re-sign him. Someone's going to be mad.
You really want to make people mad? Start talking about trading prospects.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that's a whole other show is fighting about that. I think. We will close actually today by talking about prospects because I think all of us are pretty into the young guys coming up through the system. I know that all of us keep an eye on the AHL and our prospects down there. When do the kids get called up? Should they get called up? Should we be seeing Quentin Byfield, Arthur Kaliev, all them in Kings games? Do you think we see them this season, especially after the trade deadline and maybe some roster spots open up?
Absolutely. And, I still don't know if the OHL is going to start back. So let them go to the NHL. Let them get their experience in, right? You don't have to burn up the first year of their ELC. You don't have to do that. But, I mean, you could keep those two up and then shuttle back and forth the other kids like Turcotte, Vajimo, Kupari, anybody you wanted to bring up and back and forth, you could do it. Because let's face it, if they don't take 3 out of 4 against the Sharks in this weekend series, I'm sorry. I don't want to be a pessimist, but they're done. Yeah. So take advantage of it. Get those kids some playing time. And, it's not going to determine what you have, but it'll at least give them a little taste. I mean, a little motivation going into training camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Be kind of similar to the Velarde situation last year, called up for the final 10 games or whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, I was just going to add one more thing. I mean, Scott, you nailed it. I think you have to call up Quentin Byfield for probably the last 6 games of the season, bring up Arthur Kaliev for another 5, give a look at Alex Turcotte for, 2 or 3 games. He's dealt with some injuries this year, but you know what I'm saying. Just if after this weekend, after the trade line passes, the Kings are obviously out of it. You have to start seeing what you have in these 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old players.
Yeah, I think if Sammy Fagemo didn't get hurt a couple weeks ago, I think he'd probably be on the team right now. I'm probably one of the highest. I had a rankings piece come out a couple weeks ago, and I had him number 3 overall in terms of Kings prospects. I just love the way that kid plays, and I was kind of hoping I'd see him playing with Velarde. But as far as who we see at the end of the season, I think like Scott and Ryan mentioned, Quentin Byfield most likely probably get 6 games before the season's over. Probably get Artie Kaliev some couple games, but I'd really like to see what Akil Thomas could bring up in the NHL as well. I think his game translates really well into the NHL. He plays he's really versatile, plays all 3 positions really well. He's even played defense in the junior hockey league system as well. So that's cool to see. But I think that's a player that I think fans will really love to get behind. He'd be a quick fan favorite in LA, and I think he'd be a good young prospect to see this year.
Yeah, he's also someone who I think rises to the moment. I mean, whether it's juniors, Hockey Canada, even with the Reign, I feel like he scores his share of games, overtime winners or buzzer beaters that send the team to overtime, or game-winning goals. I think that he'd only improve that if he was in the NHL, of just being that player. Like you need that. Like I hate like intangibles because you can't quantify it, but he just has that sort of that ability to just rise to whatever occasion and be the clutch guy. And it's been a little while since the Kings have had kind of a young, exciting player like that.
Yeah, and to your point, Sarah, the 2020 World Juniors, the hat trick in under 4 minutes a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, he just kind of put the team on his back, and he had the shootout winner in that game as well. So yeah, bring him up.
Yeah, I think that's I think what everyone wants to see is the kids, and I think that the longer we go without the OHL having even any plan whatsoever for starting play, it's going to make even less sense for the Kings to send them back. If we get to the beginning of May and the OHL is like, oh, we've got an idea now. Keep them. That's stupid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, and truthfully, sending Byfield and Kaliev back to go down and put up dominating numbers on 16 and 17-year-olds. What's that doing for them?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. It's absolutely nothing. That's like sending a varsity baseball pitcher back to Little League to work on his stuff. You don't do it, right? So
I would reference my Office Space analogy here, but neither of you guys got that on our last episode, so I won't say it.
Sorry. I'm sorry, okay?
Ryan's heartbroken about that.
I was like, why are they staring at me? Like, it's a classic movie. It's only to find out Russell's never seen it.
Oh, no. I mean, that was like,
I have a lot of movies to watch.
yeah, that was a regular college watch for and then I got a real job in a real office, and I was like, oh, it's even funnier now. So I'm with you.
I was
I'm
into
with
like
you.
the Step Brothers, Super
yeah.
Troopers,
That's fair.
Super Bad
Yeah,
kind of phase.
Yeah.
So.
Well, see, at least I have a legit excuse. I'm 46, so that was definitely not a college movie for me. Okay.
You're like, no. Youths. Well, it has been a pleasure talking with you guys, and I hope we can do this again sometime as we find out more about what the Kings are doing in the future, and hopefully return to relevance in the near future. I'm really glad that we got to have this chat, and I will have you guys all go around and say where they can find you online, pitch anything you want to pitch, and any closing thoughts as we wrap things up today.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. You can find me on Twitter at NHL Russell, also on Rink Royalty. Got some fun stuff in the works. And yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at ScottKinville13. I do also do another podcast called Marty's Illegal Stick. You can find that on YouTube, actually. And of course, all our work over at Rink Royalty that we're so proud of.
Yep, and me, Ryan, at LAK_Ryan, and also Russell and I tag team the Rink Royalty Twitter account during game days. So he's tweeting out the play-by-play, and I'm grabbing the video clips. So some of the times I feel like, spend more time grabbing the clips than watching the games, but it's all part of the fun.
Providing a wonderful service for those of us like me who can't just successfully make gifts, just can't do it. So it's very welcome for those of us who haven't figured it out yet. Well, thank you guys for chatting, and we will see very quickly what the Kings are doing on the trade trade deadline day, and who won't be in a Kings uniform in just a few short hours, really.
Absolutely. And Sarah, we need to have you on the Hockey Royalty podcast soon.
Absolutely. Give me a date and I will be there.
All right.
Yeah,
thanks for having us on, Sarah.
Thank you so much to Ryan, to Scott, and to Russell for joining the show. Again, you can find their show on Twitter at royalty_pod, of course, available wherever you get your podcasts, and go check out their work on the Rink Royalty website. That is it for today. Make sure you're following them on social media. I'm on social media at Right Said Sarah on Twitter, at LockedOnLAKings. Also on Twitter. Make sure you're following the show on your favorite podcast app of choice. Tune into our live trade deadline day coverage starting at noon Eastern. Find Locked On NHL Pods on Twitter for more information on that, and come back tomorrow and all week long for more news all about the Los Angeles Kings and whatever comes next after Rob Blake trades away all of our sons. That is it for today. Until next time, this has been Locked On Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.